Awesome. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, depending on where you're joining us from today. Um, I think we're just gonna start off the session in the interest of time. I know a couple of people are trickling in, but we'll start off with the introductions and have everyone kind of come in. Just to start off, I think just a very happy day of play to all of you. We're so excited to have you join us today and celebrate this really important day with all of you. Um, Over the next 60 minutes, we're going to be talking about learning through play in low resource and humanitarian settings. The webinar is organized by the Global Schools Forum. For those of you who don't know us, GSF is a collaborative community of non-state actors working in education in low and middle income countries. Currently, we have 123 organizations that are a part of our network, working across 60 countries, impacting close to 22 million children. GSF also has an emerging community of non-state practitioners working specifically in ECD and those who are also innovating in play. We're really excited to partner with some of our members today and collaborate with sector partners to bring forth this session to all of you today. Without much ado, let me quickly introduce all our panelists to you. First, we have Rafiath Rashid Mithila, Head of ECD Programs from BRAC International. BRAC International is a nonprofit organization that is working on areas like education, health, youth empowerment, humanitarian programs across Asia and Africa. Welcome, Mithila. Next, we have Priyanka Handa. She's joining us from Botswana. Priyanka is the co-founder and CEO at Learn to Play. Learn to Play uses innovative play pedagogies to provide high-quality early childhood education to children. Hi, Priyanka. And we have Divya Lata. Divya is the global technical lead on early childhood education at UNICEF. Hi, Divya. Welcome to the session today. The session is going to be moderated by Dr. Shah, who is the fellow at the Center for Universal Education at the Brookings Institution. A huge welcome to all of our panelists today. Before I pass it on to Sweta, just one quick housekeeping point for all of you. If you have a question for the panelists, we'd request you to use the chat feature over Zoom during the Q&A time, which is kind of slotted in a little bit later in the session. We'll pick up questions from the chat and pose it to the panelists. So please keep your questions sort of rolling in. We have a couple of people sort of monitoring those, and it'll be useful to kind of have them come in an ongoing basis. Okay, on that note, I think this is over to you, Sweta.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Thanks to the Global Schools Forum for organizing this. This is our inaugural day of play, which is very exciting. And so we're thrilled to have this webinar today. There's significant evidence of the importance of play in supporting children's learning and development. We know this. We know that it supports children's socio-emotional well-being, their creativity, their physical development, and cognitive skills. Through play, brain connections in children can be strengthened and built over time. And it gives children a sense, an ability to create resiliency as well and friendship. So recognizing this important day, we have put together this webinar for you to kind of talk through numerous themes that emerge, especially regarding play in crisis settings and in low resource settings. So I'm thrilled to have you all here today. And I'm actually going to start our webinar today with a fun question, which involves all of you. So I want you all to be ready. So the first question that I'm going to ask to the panelists and to all of you here is, what did you love to play as a child? So let's take a minute, not even a minute. Let's take like 10 seconds, 30 seconds to think about what did you love to play as a child? And for the audience in the chat, you're getting a Mentimeter. So please go ahead and click on that and sign into the Mentimeter and put your ideas in there. So for the panelists, we're gonna put up our what we love to play. Let me try to unblur this. Okay, so we have from Priyanka, we have climbing. From Divya, your blur.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to focus, but anyway, it's an illustration I made of playing conductor. You know, we lived in a compound and the gate served as the bus, and we used to play conductor and passengers, and a lot of preparation went into it. We made money, we made tickets, and a whole lot of rules were followed. So it's one of my fondest memories. Maybe this way you can see it.
Yes,
you can see the
see
gates and the house at least.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So a lot of imaginative play. So that's similar to what I put. I loved making forts and using using like playing, imaginative play, taking sofas and bed sheets and pillows and making, different forts to play with. And then Mithila has building a castle. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it's quite similar to what you just shared. It's building a castle through cushions, pillows, and the design would change every day because I wanted to become an architect when I was really
Oh,
young,
wow.
and I designed my own castle and made up stories around that. Yeah.
And then Priyanka, you put in climbing. So do you want to tell us about that?
Well, it's climbing trees. So I tried to draw a tree next to it, but my drawing's not very good. But my favorite thing to do as a child was always be outdoors. So I was always climbing trees, playing with mud, doing various different things. As long as I was outside, I was very happy.
Great. So can we see now what the audience has said?
Yeah, we just quickly get that up on the screen.
Okay, so great. We got hide and seek. So we have hide and seek and bicycle really big. So that means multiple people put that. Somebody put gymnastics, building blocks, and it's changing. Bikes seem to be big. Street games, making up stories, football, dodgeball, hopscotch, sardines, castle building, painting, playing with sand, construction of houses. So a variety of different ways that we all love to play. And so children in low resource and crisis settings are just like us. They love to play as well. And as Divya was mentioning, when she was playing, they made money, like they were counting money, they were selling things, they made tickets. So there's, in that play itself, her play itself illustrates all the learning that was happening. Divya, do you remember some of the things that you learned?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember, that time you had a different, so I'm from India and you had the 5 paisa coin. So we used to actually, use that pencil technique of then snapping it on and then doing the plus and minus of how much fare you have to pay. Of course, we were sometimes way off the actual calculation, but it was partly, learning to play with numbers. I also remember the longer you went, the longer ticket you had. So somewhere, correlating the length of the ticket with the length of the journey was, something that was some getting correlated in our head. So now I can look at that as a pedagogue.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, so for me, when I was building forts, often it was with my brother. If it was in the house, if it was outside the house, it was with friends. And my brother and I would fight a lot. So I feel like I learned a lot of negotiation skills and problem solving through that. So how about you, Mithila and Priyanka? What do you think you learned in these play activities?
Yeah, I learned to strategize because sometimes when I was playing this same thing with my siblings, they came up with some ideas of how we can build a castle and how we can, design it. And I came up with some. So we really had to, again, we had to negotiate, but at the same time, I had to strategize in terms of how we are going to not get into a fight and still make it work.
Great. And Priyanka, when you were climbing, what did you feel like you learned?
I mean, I think the obvious now is the gross motor skills, the balance, the climbing. But I also think through that, I fell a lot. So I think I developed a lot of resilience. So it was about falling, pursuing that, not giving up, trying to get higher and higher. So that determination and perseverance, and I really appreciated that. But then every time I was at the top of a tree, I would come up with stories of where I was. Sometimes I was Rapunzel, let my hair down. Sometimes I was in a tree house of my own. And so, various different things. And if I had friends over or my siblings around, it would become another imaginary place. So it was a combination of different things that came through it. But I think the biggest thing I can remember was that perseverance to get up and try again.
Yeah, and as you know, all these skills that we've mentioned go beyond the academic skills that are learned in the classroom. And as we know, are critical skills that children need. They are the breadth of skills that children need really for being in the world and for succeeding in the world. So thanks to all of you who contributed to that and shared a little bit about what you yourself love to play as a child. So now let's jump in. Today we're going to do a little bit of a conversation style webinar. It's going to be a little bit different. And so if I could have our panelists pinned so everyone can see them. And I'm going to start the first question to you, Divya, is, this is the UN just declared today as the International Day of Play. What does this signify, and why has it been put on the agenda, and what does it mean for UNICEF?
Thank you. Thanks, Sweta. Yeah, actually, just as we discussed right now, play is the child's natural way of being, of exploring the environment. Ask anyone, play is what children do, right? The process actually reflects an inherent motivation to engage with a sense of freedom and enjoyment. It offers the child a rich interactive space to learn about the world, observing how people and objects respond, and thereby establishing patterns, using this knowledge then to shape one's own behavior. As you said, today we are celebrating the adoption of UN General Assembly resolution taken on March 25th this year to mark June 11 as the International Day of Play, with the support of 140 member states and a tenacious coalition of non-governmental and private sector partners. UNICEF recognizes the central role of play to promote holistic development of all individuals across cognitive, social, emotional, and physical domains throughout the life cycle, working across 190 plus countries and territories to advocate for children's rights and expand opportunities for all children to reach their full potential. The power of play is an incredible asset in our work, and I will illustrate with a few examples. Through play, children engage in meaningful activities that foster learning and development, and it enables them to acquire important skills. We just heard a few of those as that were narrated. Play is also a powerful tool for strengthening the bond between caregivers and children, creating a secure environment where children feel loved and supported. So this is a momentous occasion, an opportunity for us to celebrate play, not only as a mere leisure activity, but a vital component of human development. As we celebrate the incredible power of play, we also draw attention to the barriers preventing children around the world to enjoy their right to play and what can be done to address them, especially when we look at challenging situations of poverty, conflict, climate change, and other crises, where UNICEF is very heavily engaged in as part of the response. Available data show us that around 1 in 5 children aged 2 to 4 years do not play with their caregivers at home. And that may come as a surprise to many people because, like we said, play is what children do. We also look at that about 1 in 8 children under 5 do not have toys or playthings at home. And I want to be very clear, we don't mean that you can only play when you have designated playthings, but some objects or situations which can stimulate that imagination, that engagement are always helpful. And very often we can find these objects around the house as well as in the environment, as long as we are looking for it and putting them to that use. Of course, these gaps are important, and this has to change. By elevating the profound role of play in human development, we not only support children's learning and development in diverse contexts, but also contribute to the broader economic and social development of societies and achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So as you can see, UNICEF is very interested in the development of children, but also working with government and partners to make sure that we have sustainable programs that make that happen. And then we are able to support parents, families, and communities to indeed provide every child that right to play, which is so vital for their development. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Divya. And I'd love to now turn to Mithila and Priyanka, and you are both implementing play in low resource and crisis settings. So can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like and what have been your key innovations?
First of all, happy International Day of Play, everyone. So BRAC works in crisis settings in Uganda and Bangladesh, where in Bangladesh we work with the Rohingya refugees, and in Uganda we work with the South Sudanese refugees primarily. And I would say all the innovations actually come from working very closely with them, with the community, with parents, with children themselves, because they know how to be resilient. It's just that we need to support them so that they can realize their potential to become more resilient. The key innovation would be leveraging on the power of play. I think that is what we do. And we focus largely on healing through play, because children, parents, they come with a lot of trauma. We have found children both in the Rohingya refugee context as well as in the Ugandan refugee context, that children come, sometimes they can't even express themselves. They're not being able to speak about it. Parents don't know how to handle that. So that, when they come and, we engage them through play, we have seen that by, playing with their peers, gradually they start to express themselves. They through painting, through drawing, through singing together, they gradually learn to cope, because they also come to a very new environment all on a sudden. So that coping to this new environment is also very important. So I would say that healing through play is the overarching innovation, and which we have learned working with the community, working with children, working with parents. But the process, there are quite a few steps that we follow at times, that we build on the culture and heritage of the refugee children, because they come from a culture, a specific culture. They are used to playing certain games, certain play. They're used to singing certain songs. But suddenly they come to a very new context where they have to mix with new people. They don't speak the language. It's a new culture. So there's a lot of adaptation that has to be done. So the first step is working and building on the culture and heritage. And that's why in the Rohingya refugee context, there is a lot of, we observed the parents, we observed the children, and we saw that they really love to use colors. So in the play spaces, you'll see a lot of emphasis of colors. They are great at handicrafts. So there's a lot of showcasing of handicrafts in the play spaces. The children are great at physical play, and they're really acrobatic. They're really flexible, and they express themselves the best, the best that way. Then there is kavyas, which is basically the Rohingya poems. And there are plenty of numerous kavyas that they already know. So building the curriculum, building all the play activities around their culture, I think that's one great learning and the biggest strength of healing through play. And then we have play facilitators who from both the host community and the refugees. So, for example, in Uganda, we have South Sudanese play facilitators, as well as we have play facilitators from Uganda, from the local context. So, in this way, children, it becomes very easy for children to understand the language, the instructions. They see somebody, they can connect with somebody that comes from the same culture and context, but at the same time, they are also learning to blend in with another adult from environment. And then integration of psychosocial support, and we have worked on a para-counselor model, which is very contextual. It may look different in in the Ugandan context than the Bangladesh context, but how we can utilize and leverage on the local resources available, building the capacity of staff and play leaders so that they can provide first aid, mental health support to children as well as parents. The final point I would add is the integration of skills and the livelihood opportunity for families that we are implementing a 2-generation approach in the Ugandan refugee camps, because these parents, they come with a lot of uncertainty. They don't have their own livelihood. They don't have their, aspirations. They don't know how they're going to, aspire or dream about their children's future. So we have connected our very, tested, and it's the graduation approach is globally renowned, where we work with the families from extreme poor families, basically. So we have integrated our Play Lab approaches to that, and we have supported, built skills and provided livelihood opportunities and parenting education to the parents, to the household, to the families, and then their children are coming to the Play Labs. And we have found that these children, although they are from the extreme poor families, but their attendance is better than others. So this integrated support is actually working. So yeah, I would like to stop here. These are some of the innovations that we are trying, but there's a small, very, very small video that I would like to share, just to share a glimpse from Uganda.
I'll get that up on the screen.
Sure.
By name, I'm Shah. I'm a South Sudanese refugee living here in Uganda for the last 10 years. In this camp, we live with so many refugees, most of whom are children. I am a play leader. Play help many of us, including the children, when you have the trauma. When Divya joined, she could not interact with other children. She was always sitting alone. The games we play here help Divya to open up slowly. Play help children to heal, not only children, but everyone around. When I'm with children here, I actually forget every problem I'm having at home. Together, we heal.
You're on mute, Sweta.
I'm sorry about that. Thanks, Mithila, for sharing some of your innovations, and also that nice video, which actually showcases how, that South Sudanese refugee woman actually is a play leader, and the work that you do. So now let's turn it over to Priyanka. Priyanka, can you share with us, what are some of the innovations you've seen in Botswana in the refugee camps that you support?
Thanks so much, and happy International Day of Play to all of you as well. It's such an exciting day. I've had a morning full of play in the park already, and ready to share more with you guys today. So yeah, here in Botswana, we work in a refugee camp, as well as in 10 other very low resource, low income communities, really on the margins of society. And we've got two main innovations for play in crisis, or play in low resource settings. One is our play groups, and the other is our parent play box, both which are underpinned by our mindful play approach. But you're going to ask, I'm sure, what is mindful play? And instead of telling you, I'm going to show you. Because it's the day of play, I invite you all to play with me for a minute. So I'm going to take you through a mindful play exercise that is locally contextualized to Botswana and our environment, where majority of our country lives in coexistence with wildlife. So I'm going to ask you to please close your eyes and imagine yourself as a tall giraffe. So you might want to sit up a bit taller for this while you're in your chair. Really, lengthen your spine, lengthen your back, lengthen your neck, and you're going to be this giraffe with a long neck. And I'd like you to take a deep breath in, really filling your long giraffe neck in with love. And I want you to be this giraffe full of love. So as you breathe in, imagine filling yourself up with love. And as you breathe out slowly, keeping your eyes closed, think of wrapping your long giraffe neck, now full of love, around somebody that you really, really love, somebody that's very precious to you, in a giraffe hug. So you're wrapping your neck around them, breathing out and giving them that love through that giraffe hug. Keeping your eyes closed, I'm going to ask you to take another deep breath in. And this time, I'd like you to think about somebody that you're not getting on with very well at the moment. That could be a friend on the playground, it could be your brother or sister, it could be mom or dad, a colleague, but somebody that at the moment you're not getting on very well with. And as you breathe out, I'd like you to imagine you're sending a friendly hello their way. It's almost like sending a secret smile to them through the wind as you breathe out. You're going to take one more deep breath in, filling your giraffe neck with love. And as you breathe out, think about all the animals, the tall trees, the plants and children all over the world, and send them a wave of kindness like a gentle breeze. You can come back to normal breathing. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And that's what we mean by mindful play. It's one of the activities in our curriculum that we often start our mornings with at our play groups, but also that's in our parenting program, the Parent Play Box. And we emphasize this approach in all our programs because we've seen that mindful play supports young children to develop a strong foundation for lifelong learning, but more importantly, their well-being. We know that unless children are happy and healthy, they're not going to learn in the way that we'd like them to at our play groups. We also want to ensure that children and the adults that care for and educate them are engaging in activities that actually promote emotional awareness and self-regulation. So our curriculum and our parenting programs are actually filled with activities like yoga, breath work, meditations, and affirmations, but in a very playful way like this one. We're not asking children to take 3 deep breaths in and out without giving them something concrete to anchor their focus on and imagine themselves as these creatures and thinking about it in a childlike way. This is the only one, I think, that we have that's seated. A lot of our other meditations, breathing exercises, and activities are actually standing and movement-based because that's what children need to do to learn and play, even when they're being mindful. And by doing so, children develop their social and emotional learning, their cognitive thinking, their imagination, and which are all essential for cultivating resilience and coping mechanisms, especially in the difficult and uncertain situations that they find themselves in. Our impact also extends beyond the children we serve. In addition to our play groups, we've got our parent play box that's been delivered to hundreds of families across Botswana and South Africa. The parent play box also emphasizes mindful play and strengthens the parent-child relationship for children aged 0 to 5 through 52 specially designed activities, one for every week of the year. And we've had testimonials from fathers especially, which is what I love the most, that talk about how through the parent play box, they've developed love. And that's been the thing that they've been most eager to come and tell us. Not about how children learn to count and their colors and their shapes, but they come so excited to say, through play, we have found a way of expressing our love to our children. We didn't know how to show love before. And I think that's the power of play that we've seen, especially through mindful play. And we've heard about innovations through economic empowerment, but all of our 40 Matla Mamas that we've trained to lead our play groups have been lifted above poverty. And I think that demonstrates the ripple effect of what play can do economically for societies as well. So I'm going to hand back to you, Sweta, but those are just a glimpse of what we've done in Botswana.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Priyanka, for that wonderful activity. And now I'm going to ask Divya, from the UNICEF perspective, you support many different organizations and work. What have been some of the key innovations that you've seen with your work?
Thanks again. In fact, yes, UNICEF's emergency response integrates play-based facilitated activities that target mental health outcomes through holistic early childhood programs. They encompass health, education, protection, and other interventions. Most recently, we've been working in Turkey and Northwest Syria, which, as you know, were impacted by earthquakes early last year. And this is the Play and Heal project being implemented with in partnership with Lego Foundation. And in this one, there is most typically the project supports the most vulnerable children, including from refugee communities. And these children are cared for in child-friendly spaces to play and learn. Another similar example is that of the Spinka centers in Poland, which are designated to meet unique needs of Ukrainian children who have been displaced by war, and they also follow a nature-based play curriculum. In both cases, the play and learning hubs generate a sense of routine, predictability, normalcy, which are very valuable for children in an otherwise chaotic environment. They also provide the much needed relief from prolonged stress that children and their families experience. And it also creates a sense of belongingness with emotionally safe and healing experiences. The Spinka centers that I mentioned are particularly noteworthy because they look at how engaging children in the local context, in fact, directly in the environment in which they are living in. That's why we call it nature-based play curriculum, how that can generate interesting activities and also becomes a place where adaptation and integration into the local community happens for children as well as their caregivers, providing a sense of stability and security to the families. I think it's better to watch than to be told about it. So why don't we see a short film clip demonstrating what I've just said? Thank you.
Рідний край, красивий, щедрий рідний край, і мова наша солов'їна, люби, шануй, оберігай все, що зветься Україна.
Program Spinka to program wzajemnego wsparcia i oparcia i łączenia dzieci, które przybyły do nas z Ukrainy, ich matek w Polsce, środowiska, w jakim teraz żyją. Dzieci, które tutaj są pozbawione swojego naturalnego środowiska. My w ramach naszego programu próbujemy stworzyć takie środowisko, w którym będą się czuły dobrze, bezpiecznie, będą szczęśliwe, będą się rozwijać, będą chciały się uczyć, a ich rodzice będą mieli pewność, że to jest dobre miejsce. W tej chwili mamy już 30 takich punktów w Polsce. Do końca października mamy głęboką nadzieję i proszę trzymać za nas kciuki. Będziemy mieli 100 spynek w Polsce i to będzie chyba jedna z ważniejszych misji, jaką nasza Fundacja Rozwoju Dzieci realizuje od prawie 20 lat.
Apologies for the boxes. I believe there's some gray boxes coming. I'll share the link on the chat so you have that.
Thanks so much, Divya, for sharing also that perspective with us. And, really interesting to see that in each context, even though there are some similar elements, it looks very different. And it's all culture-based and what is appropriate in that culture. So now I'm going to turn over to Priyanka and to Mithila to share with us your key challenges. What are 1 to 2 key challenges that you have experienced as you've tried to implement play in low resource and crisis settings? Let me ask Mithila first.
Sure. I would say the main challenge is the mindset of the adults, parents, community, because play is not prioritized in a crisis setting to be, when people are in a crisis situation, when there is a crisis for food, shelter, basic necessities, play is naturally not prioritized. But when even afterwards, when it comes to children's learning and education, when they gradually be able to think about that, playing in a refugee camp is never considered, as a priority. And then related to that, children's mental health is also, not a priority for adults, because, we think that, they're going to be okay. They're going to blend in eventually. They're going to learn to cope eventually. But, we need to prioritize the mental health of children. We need to be observant, and we need to create a supportive environment so that they can cope and they can be resilient. So I would say that these two things are the main challenges. But I would like to stop here because I want to show a video which will give you a glimpse of the challenge and how we handle that.
We just get it up on the screen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mithila, for showing us now a glimpse of South Sudanese refugees' experience, and then now Rohingya experience as well. So Priyanka and Divya, maybe Priyanka first, anything that, like, from your perspective that you have seen in Africa, in Southern Africa, as kind of key challenges that you want to add to what Mithila said?
Yeah, I think first I really agree with everything you shared, and also thank you for sharing that video. It was beautiful. You know, and I think the priority on children and caregiver emotional well-being is really not prioritized. And so even when it does come to learning, even when it comes to play, I think as long as the focus is on learning and academics, that's usually a priority. And as soon as we start talking about children's happiness, and I'll never forget this, on my first day of launching the play group in the Dukri refugee camp, and we started talking about mindful play and children's happiness, a parent actually stood up and said, "You're the first person that's actually asked me if me and my child are happy. Nobody has ever asked me that in this whole process before." And it's never been thought of to ask a family, what do you need to feel happy? What would help in this context? And so I think that's one. And I think the other that we keep hearing back from parents is that parents and caregivers don't feel equipped with the knowledge, the resources, and the confidence on how to support their children's learning and development, especially through play. And again, a lot of parents tell us that we went through rote learning experiences. So if it's coming to like teach our children how to rote learn their numbers or their letters, we know how to do that, but we don't know how to facilitate learning through play. We certainly don't know how to facilitate their social and emotional development. So those are the challenges that we see. And definitely the value of play-based learning. Again, a big challenge is we get told, you know, children will play in their free time, but they don't have free time. They're so busy with chores and other responsibilities that they never get to do that. And they don't see the value of play, and it's seen as this luxury that can be postponed consistently as opposed to a fundamental right for children. So those are the biggest challenges. And then of course, funding. I think funding is another big challenge, especially when it comes to crisis situations and talking about play. There are often so many more urgent needs, you know, whether it's health or support for safety, you know, support for adults, certainly support for youth and, you know, kind of teenage and, you know, employment opportunities, that young children, early childhood education and play is often the lowest down on a priority list when it comes to crisis settings.
Great. And Divya, anything to add from the UNICEF perspective and learnings that you've had?
For sure. I mean, I do want to reiterate, in fact, re-emphasize the point on how issues around poverty really impact the right to play that children have. Our data shows that disparities by, you know, when you look at household wealth, children in the poorest households are less likely to receive early stimulation and responsive care compared to those in the richest household. These are, of course, you know, things we have known for a long time. But I think also Priyanka made a very important point on caregiver well-being, mental health, and that being a strong factor that determines the ability of parents and caregivers to engage in that playful interaction with their children. But I wanted to focus a little bit on some of the other social norms which could also come in the way, and particularly gender norms. You know, typically it is considered that the father figure or the male members of the family who are supposed to be more the disciplinarian and have to be sort of more stern and sort of taskmasters with their children, as opposed to being the nurturant, welcoming play kind of relationships. So they do come a lot in the way of children experiencing that playful parenting and playful interaction with their fathers very often. I'm reminded of an example from my earlier work in Sri Lanka, where there were these baby corners approach that was being promoted. Basically, what was done is when the woman is pregnant, then the midwives were encouraged to engage both the mother and father to start making a corner where their baby would be cared for and decorate it with, you know, bright things that the child could look at. And through that experience, actually opening up the relationship both between the husband and wife, and, you know, to welcome this new child who's coming in, but also to think about the kinds of activities they could be engaging in, and themselves also bring, you know, learn a few things about how play activities could be done with these children. And one of the things it really did was really open up that space for these men who were always considered to be, you know, highly, to be the, you know, traditionally, culturally, the taskmasters in the family. And also knowing the history of Sri Lanka with a lot of war and violence that people grow up with. This was a real, I mean, sometimes the kind of stories that you heard then from the men of, for the first time, that I really connected with my child, or I really connected even with my wife on this sort of plane. So I think these social norms can often come in the way of the adults who shape the child's environment, really open up and not only value the play, but also the interactivity that in fact cements the bond between parents and children. And I think that's one of the aspects that we would really like to continue to work on.
Great, thanks. And now let's move to our last question, which, ultimately we want to see change in this. We want to see more play being funded and prioritized in crisis and low resource settings. So I'm going to ask all three of you now, what are 1 to 2 things that you think we can do to push governments and donors to really prioritize and invest in this area?
May I kick it off?
Yes, sure.
Sure. So I think first of all, we are really excited for this International Day of Play. And again, once again, happy International Day of Play, everyone. It is really, to elevate the IDOP as a compelling new global moment to promote, measure, and advocate for tangible progress on the right to play. It is a very unique opportunity to influence both governments as well as donors and other stakeholders who will really shape this going forward in our countries. Indeed, there are many things that governments can do, especially by promoting, implementing, and resourcing policies that shape the kinds of programs and practices that really fulfill the right to play for children. The first thing I would pick up are family-friendly policies. These are policies that support parents so that they're able to balance work and care for their children, including in the informal sector, and thereby promote not only their own mental health, but also enabling them to engage in playful parenting. So I think that's one very important peg through the family-friendly policies. I think also the provision of quality, inclusive early learning opportunities, especially for the most vulnerable children in diverse environments, is very important. And going in tandem with that is skilling and incentivizing the teachers and caregivers who would actually be running these centers, not only directly themselves, but also engaging with parents to influence the home learning environments and their own engagement. And I think Priyanka talked about that the value of play may not always be understood or appreciated, especially that as the child is playing, it's not just a time off work, but that is the child's work, and that indeed through play learning is happening. So to really skill the teachers so that they not only internalize these play approaches themselves, but are also able to influence parents and families, communities to appreciate that and follow that. And then finally, I think protection of play in public spaces and care environments, especially as we look at, there is of course the whole safetyism, which sometimes can be taken to the level that then children don't have the freedom to indeed play, while being mindful of their safety and security to provide that space to play, but also to not only look at the built environment, but also to looking at its use, its maintenance, and also equitable access, so that public spaces for play can be protected and promoted and really become something that everybody can have access to. I'm going to stop there.
Great. Mithila, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, these are great advocacy issues that we all, should work together. But I think getting the government, making them the play advocates, and also getting the donors as play advocates, that's one big task that we all have to do together, and we can leverage on this International Day of Play. And I think generating contextual evidences, because there are plenty of evidences available on play, but play can look very different in different contexts, especially crisis situations. So if we can, generate more evidences, and then really translating them in a playful way so that everybody can understand, even who are not, within the development context. And then demonstrating has worked really well for us. Getting government, getting donors on board, and because seeing is believing. So, really taking them and showing them what, how play looks like in these situations. Like these videos, I think my words were not enough, when I was talking about innovations and challenges, but these videos did wonders and spoke a lot about the situation. So that, and then, advocacy from local to global, holding hands together, everybody, so that everybody is on the same page and nobody is, coming up with different kind of messages, so that we all can speak one voice. And again, I would say that this International Day of Play is a great example of holding hands together. I'll stop here.
And Priyanka, over to you.
I mean, obviously, I want to start by saying thank you because I agree with everything you've said, especially in terms of demonstration and generation of evidence. I think when Learn to Play first started in Botswana, the country, the government had never heard of play groups. We were the first to introduce the point, and it was in 2017. And then 5 years later, there are now actual policies to be able to guide and license play groups in the country based on our work and generating evidence with the government. And I think the key part of that was getting their buy-in and involvement from the get-go. So when we first started and we wanted to introduce the concept of playgroups, the first people we went to were the government and said, this is what we'd like to do. And they said, we have no idea what that is. We have no idea how we'd regulate it or how it would work, but you go do what you need to do and we'll just watch. But we involved them at every step of the way. And I think getting their buy-in from the beginning was actually our kind of secret sauce to success in terms of now their buy-in to playgroups. And that word is now an official term in the government that can be licensed, and it's all about play. And the other has been local contextualization of our curriculum and our approaches. And we've been able to link all of that to the national early learning development standards. So linking everything, I mean, if countries have ELDS or policies that are specific to early learning, then linking what you're doing to those and demonstrating how through play you're actually able to achieve these academic or developmental milestones and outcomes that are set in curricula and that can be measured, evaluated, and assessed, I think is a really key component. And the last one I'd say that we've had a lot of success on is getting corporate social responsibility investment from local Botswana companies into our play groups and into play-based programming, and then measuring that amount and then being able to put an amount of saying through Learn to Play or for play-based programs, this is how much, X thousands of dollars that have gone into play since or this year, and how that translates into outcomes or a cost per child and the benefits of that. So by now making the economic case for it and the investment case back into the country. So those have been our three kind of ways of getting government buy-in.
Great, thanks so much. Wonderful. So now we're gonna take a little bit of time. We only have 8 minutes left. So there are a few questions that have come up in the chat, and unfortunately we won't have time for all of them. But there was one that I think hasn't been brought up in your conversations, and that's about measurement of these non-academic outcomes and how we can give confidence to teachers on the role of playful learning. So it also, if governments and donors, they'll invest if they see the impact and the outcomes. How have you gone about measuring some of these outcomes?
Should I go?
Sure, just jump in.
Yeah, when we first started, evaluating our Play Lab model, it was initially funded by Lego Foundation, and we were implementing it in 3 different contexts in Bangladesh, Uganda, and Tanzania. We actually had to adapt a lot of measurement tools in different contexts because, we have used some universally available tools such as IDELA. There are, WIPSI, there is the Ages and Stages questionnaire. So we had to sit and we had to, see what, globally, what kind of tools have been used for measurement. And we found that a lot of these tools have never been used in the context of Tanzania, or some of them have never been used in the context of Uganda. So we had to actually, the first work was to adapt these tools. Now we have a good resource of tools adapted in these contexts. So I think a lot of implementers, service providers can reach out to us and we can support. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of measurement tools and methods available which UNICEF have used, or which other organizations have used. So I think we need to leverage on each other. And there are a lot of evidence is already available on Play. We just need to contextualize those.
And
I'll just going to jump in and say, I think I can relate to that. We've tried a lot of tools. Some of them, however, have not been the most relevant in our context, or have been really not play focused. So, we advocate for play in our curriculum and our pedagogy and the programs. But then when it comes to assessment, it's like pulling a child out one at a time with an assessor they've never met before. It's a very stressful situation, and they're not actually able to showcase what they've been learning through play in that context. So we've actually worked with Children on the Edge, and I see Sarah on the call as well. So Learn to Play and Children on the Edge have collaborated to develop a play-based programming assessment tool. And that's to evaluate the program itself in terms of holistic developmental milestones and outcomes for children, as well as the environment. That is the environment really the most nurturing, safe, and conducive environment for learning through play in terms of the quality of teaching, but also the safety in terms of psychological safety as well. And I think those have been, we've certainly found some really interesting outcomes from that tool already that's informed our programming and helped us improve our programming. And I think that's really why we do what we do and why we want to assess children. It's not necessarily to make sure that every child is succeeding at 100%. And it's about making sure that the work that we're doing is of high quality, is play-based, and that children are actually learning through play across these different developmental domains and areas. And social and emotional learning is a key component of that and a key component of our tool, that in a culturally relevant way, in a way that makes sense to children, that they have already explored and experienced through play, we're then able to measure that through this play-based gamified assessment. And that's a really lovely part about it, is it's all playful and it's never with a child on their own. It's always with children in groups, which is the way they're learning, and so therefore the way they should be assessed.
Great. And
if I can, in 30
Yeah.
seconds, I just want to emphasize the point. I think the question asked that how can we give confidence to teachers? And I'm reminded of the clip in which we saw the teacher talking about from South Sudan, talking about Divine, that she was earlier very, disengaged, sitting alone. Now, this teacher she has an understanding of what she's looking for in the child. She's not only looking for, do you know ABC and do you know how to write 1, 2, 3? She's really seeing the whole child, and she has been already oriented to look for these cues in children. And one of the tools that UNICEF had developed in partnership with a number of organizations and governments was the Early Learning Development Standards. And basically what it does is looks at different developmental domains, and really it's a tool also to be used by teachers themselves directly to track the development of each child, and whether the child has already achieved that competency or are on the road to that. And through that, teachers do get sensitized to then what are the important things we are looking for. And if we can incentivize teachers then to be actually mindfully looking out for those, supporting children and shaping their learning experience so that those areas which need attention can be supported and enhanced, I think that would go a long way. The more we can keep it free of jargon, really very practical, and in ways that the teachers can directly relate to, especially when you talk to them and they describe you how the child is doing, when they talk to the parents how they describe, then all of those things come very much alive. So I think much as we, of course, for the research and other purposes would need more and we use more formal tools, but I think at a very practical level, keeping it very behavioral and orienting the teachers to the kinds of non-academic features that we are trying to see of what the child's behavior is telling us, I think that's a very important aspect too.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So in closing, I mean, I think we've seen over and over the critical importance of mindset shift. And I think we all have a long way to go, whether it's with teachers or with parents or with governments or with donors. We need to shift, whether it's with fathers or mothers. We really need to shift the mindset, and not an easy thing to do. So it's, I think, quite high on everyone's action list. We've also seen that, play is really critical for the non-academic skills that children really need to thrive and contribute to our societies. We also heard that in crisis settings and low resource settings, that if you start with the culture of the child and the children and the community and involve them in the process and use a more of a bottom-up process, you're more likely to get something that is useful for children and families, but perhaps something that's also more sustainable in the long run as well. There was a lot of discussion around healing and the power of play to build resilience and heal from any difficult circumstances. And of course, we can't forget that when we're supporting a child lives in an environment of relationships with others. And so doing wraparound services that support the family, whether it's through livelihood support, psychosocial support, even literacy support, all of that is really critical ingredients to supporting the child, because when the parent and caregiver is in a good, stable condition, he or she can be the best parent to the child. So, those are some of the high level, I would say, takeaways that I got from this. And I hope you all enjoyed our session. Thank you for being with us. And I'm going to hand it over. I know we could go on and on, but we are at the point where we need to close. So I'm going to hand it over to Priyanka from Global Schools Forum. Priyanka?
Thank you, Sweta. So we're almost nearing to the end of this session, but before we wrap up, we have a short poll, which I'm going to open right now. We'd love it if you can just take about 60 seconds to take that poll. It should be visible on your screen right now. As you're taking the poll, I also just wanted to take a minute to just thank all our panelists and all our participants for very meaningfully and enthusiastically participating in the session today. We hope you're leaving with ideas, reflections, thoughts that are going to help with advancing rights of children to play in the context that you're working in. Thank you so much again for your time, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and have a great day of play once again. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy play.
Thank you. Happy playing.
Thank you, everyone. Happy day of play.
Thank you.